Well, Pat Olson alongside Jim Brovelli. It's our first edition of the Pat and Jim Roadshow. The Dons off a 6-0 homestand have now hit the road here in Las Vegas for the Las Vegas Invitational. Jim, before we get to this tournament, got to talk about the 6-0 start. I said a 6-0 homestand. They went off campus for one game to play Davidson, but amongst the 6 wins, the Davidson victory knocked off a good Nevada team. You can't start any better than 6-0.
No, you sure can't. Todd's doing a great job, and his coaching staff. You know, what Todd did in the offseason, he brought in some size, so it's a bigger team. Masalski, for example, from USD, shot blocker, deep defender. Tape from Duke, big body. They're just much bigger and stronger than Stefanini, of course, is a great shooter, got 27 against Nevada. So the players that Todd brought in are really contributing, and it's a different guy almost every night. So yeah, they're 6-0, but they're really a deep team. This is about the deepest team I've seen USF in quite a long time.
Yeah, you hit a bit on the front line with the addition of Tape and Masalski. Stefanini, we'll get to the guard play in a minute, but it looks like a really different team. We haven't seen much of Meeks yet because he's been coming off injury. He's expected back pretty quickly here. But they're almost too deep all around, and the front line has a real different feel than a year ago, doesn't it?
Yeah, because you can go to the front line. You know, where last year and the last couple of years, you really couldn't. It was strictly a perimeter game, and it was all guard play and all three-point shots. And it's good when you're making those, but somewhere along the line, you've got to have some play inside, draw fouls, rebound, block shots. And this year, he's got that size inside, and it looks like they're complementing one another in a short 6-game span. So they're playing well right now, and just take one game at a time and see how it falls out here in pre-conference.
Yeah, you mentioned Gabe Stefanini, new player to the roster. He's been inserted in as the starting 3-man, if you will. But, you know, just how deep this team is. Rishwain came off the bench and had the big contest the last game out. After Stefanini went off against Nevada, you know, Rishwain, you know, scores, 16, 18. You just don't know who's going to score with this USF team, and what Stefanini brings to that backcourt with Rishwain, Jamari Bouye, Shabazz. They're deep at all the positions.
They're very deep with all the positions, and the most important player that you just have to look, you don't even have to look any further than this one player here is Jamari Bouye, because here's a guy, 5th-year player, who's could have played professional ball, came back for this year, 5th year, and he's the leader. I mean, he controls the tempo of the game, no wasted motion at all. The guy understands, who to get the ball to in the right place and the right time. He pushes it when it's there. He backs it up when it's not. 9 for 11 the last game, his shooting percentage. So he takes all good percentage shots. He is really the leader of this team, along with those guys that came in. You always need that one great leader, and Jamari's the guy.
You mentioned the great shooting performance against Morgan State, but I thought that he really had a stretch where he distributed. There was one point in the second half where, the game was still within range, and he took the game over. Yes, he was shooting it, making it, but he was also finding those big guys inside. Masalski, Markovetsky, who comes off the bench, the big 7'2" wall defensively. He had a couple of dunks on feeds from Bouye. Bouye really got his teammates involved in the game in their last contest against Morgan State.
Yeah, he sure did, Pat. And Jamari is a guy that is so deceptive. He's absolutely the quickest guy on the floor next to Shabazz. But he changes pace, he changes direction, changes speeds, and he sets up his teammates just by that little change of direction stuff. And then he'd kick a pass, but he knows what's going on and waits for them to get open. So he very seldom has bad turnovers. I mean, the guy is quite a player, and USF's lucky to have him, and I think that'll be the key as they go on, as the new players continue to develop. And we'll find out, their roles. It seems like they're liking him right now because it's one guy one game, another guy another game. They like that, and it's deep. But Jamari's the guy that'll control this team.
You know, Jim, as nice as this 6-0 start has been for USF, they're not the only team in the West Coast Conference that's off to an undefeated start. As we tape this here in the lobby of the hotel in Las Vegas, St. Mary's playing Wisconsin. That game, yet we don't know the outcome, but they're having a great early start to their year. Santa Clara is undefeated so far. BYU, big win over Oregon. Gonzaga, the way they played against UCLA, they just look like a separate team from the rest of the pack so far across all of college basketball, let alone the West Coast Conference. But this league is going to be really tough this year.
Yeah, no doubt about it. It's probably the toughest it's been in quite a long time. And when you look at the league, finally, East Coast writers are starting to pay attention to the West Coast Conference, because the West Coast Conference teams are beating the big schools in pre-conference. And, we always knew the WCC was a better conference than what they got credit for. But now the conference is bumping up nationally. They're probably between 7 and 10 nationally. And that really helps late. At the end of the season, at the end of the conference, how many guys that you can place, how many teams you can place in the tournament. And what is it? You'll have to correct me on this thing, but the top 4 are 26-0.
You're 27-0.
27-0.
As we sit here and tape this now, yeah.
The top 4. And the top 5 are 27-1 or something like that.
Yeah, that's ridiculous. Right? 32-1, I think.
32-1.
Yeah, something like that.
I know you know the numbers.
Yeah.
But I'm telling you, this is not a fluke. These are good coaches with good teams that have all improved. And I think the league a couple of years ago really pushed them to start scheduling tougher teams in pre-conference. Mm-hmm. And it's paying off for the conference down the road.
Jim, we'd be remiss if we didn't plug the reason we're here in Las Vegas. The Dons are in a tournament down here, the Las Vegas Invitational. They'll take on Towson on the Thanksgiving holiday, and then on Friday, either Alabama, Birmingham, or New Mexico. An opportunity, good competition, neutral floor, and you get those back-to-back games, which USF will see come March right here in the same city.
Yeah, and what Todd has to do, and with this team, he's identifying the things that they really have to improve on. Give an example of Morgan State, a lot of self-induced turnovers that really weren't needed. In conference play, that'll hurt. So I'm sure they're going to really try and work on those types of things where the passes are a little more direct to the right place at the right time and take away those turnovers. So, it's a tournament that you can really improve on that. Towson's from Maryland. I'm sure they've got a very good team. They've had good teams over the years with Athletics. And New Mexico and UAB have always been pretty solid. So it's a good tournament for USF to play prior to their next game, UNLV at home.
All right, the USF Dons here in Las Vegas for the Las Vegas Invitational. They get Towson in round 1. That's on the Thanksgiving holiday. It's a 6:30 tip-off here in Las Vegas. For those of you that want to join us on the radio side, Jim and myself will be along at 6:15 on KNBR 1050 with the radio call. Alongside Jim Brovelli, Pat Olson. That's the Jim and Pat Roadshow right here on the USF website, usfdons.com.